Want to have your SEO questions answered live? At SEOtraining.com, we offer our members monthly Q&A calls with the father of SEO himself, Bruce Clay. In this series, we are going to share some of the SEO questions that have come in from our members during our live recordings. So if you want to participate and ask your questions to Bruce in our next call, sign up to become a member today at SEOtraining.com. Enjoy. The title tags have been in the news a lot lately. Can you explain what Google changed, and do you recommend doing anything differently when optimizing page titles now?
No.
Classic.
So what Google has said, and I think the world has ignored, is that your page title that you put on the page is what is indexed. What they show in the search results, that is where they may alter the title. But that alteration does not influence your ranking. It may influence your click-through rate, but it's not supposed to be directly changing how the algorithm is going to interpret your page. Now, having said that, here's a classic example is the one I used. And by the way, it's inconsistent as to how Google is doing this. So I run Bruce Clay SEO and my title shows up. I run Bruce Clay Inc. and Google rewrites my title. I do it 3 days later. It's my regular title for Bruce Clay Inc. They didn't rewrite it. So it's going to vary over time. And I think Google is just maybe even experimenting to see, okay, I rewrote it. Did it get more clicks? Did I get fewer clicks? I don't like our rewrite. I'll keep yours. I mean, any number of things could be going on. What we do know is that Google is attempting to figure out what is the best title. Now, based upon research, it seems as if sometimes they are using the H1 tag content. And sometimes they're using content from within your page. And sometimes they're just making up a new title. There have been some horror stories about some of the things made up and how it is sometimes if you have a page that does a review of products, you could end up with your title apparently recommending a competitor. You got to be really careful with that. We had recommended adding to the robots tag something called my title, or the equivalent of no change title. I mean, it doesn't matter how you do it. I think in the Meta Robots tag that goes on the individual page, I think you should have the right to say, don't change my title. But right now, the way it works is Google seems to think that they have editorial right to be able to do that. By the way, I will also mention for years, Google has not wanted to editorialize anything because that puts them into a liability condition. Whereas if they just stick your content out there, it's your content. They're not liable if it, is illegal. I think that by Google assuming, and I'm not a lawyer, but I think that by Google assuming they can change your title, that they are in fact performing editorial changes to your content. And I think that ultimately we're going to see some backing off on the frequency and types of title changes if they're not conspicuously obvious. But, as I said, Google does what Google does. And that's always the way it's going to be. Google changes the title, but it's only for the search engine result page at this time. The actual title you put in is what goes through the algorithm.
Very interesting. There's a lot of discussion right now on different websites. I haven't actually heard it from Google before. It's actually interesting you brought that up, Bruce, because there's that debate about
when is a site a platform versus a publisher. Anytime there's editorial, that then becomes a publishing site. And if you censor something claiming to be a platform, you've now violated, I think, the rules. You're censoring content, which a lot of social media stuff is going on with that right now. But I never heard that from Google, actually. So interesting. I'd be really curious to know more about, changing the title. Does that qualify them as a publisher now instead of a platform? So very, very interesting debate going on in the world right now about that stuff. So
if you want to join our next Q&A call, be sure to sign up to become a member at SEOtraining.com so you can ask your questions live. As a member, you'll also have access to dozens of hours of training videos as well as our SEO tools and ebooks. SEO is always evolving and you need a way to stay up to date. So if you want to raise your SEO to the next level, be sure to sign up today at SEOtraining.com. Thanks for watching.